welcome back to the Mental Plateau podcast. I'm Shreyas Girotra, and I'm your host, and I'm a junior in high school in Illinois. On today's episode, we engage in a depthful conversation with a well-experienced multisystemic therapist, Sara Bright. She shares her in-depth perspective on mental rigidity and how you can help others just by helping yourself. We cover a vast range of topics as we truly attempt to redefine the idea of mental health and how that applies to our social setting. Let's jump right into it. Welcome back, Mental Plateauers. My name is Shreyas Girotra, and I'm a high schooler on the mission of emphasizing the importance of mental health. As we interview more and more people, we look to see how mental health really arcs over every aspect of our lives. And today, we have the pleasure of inviting Sara Bright, a well experienced multisystemic therapist, for an episode. Let's start with the introduction. You have an impressive background. Would you like to share with our listeners on what you do?
Sure. So, as you mentioned, my name is Sara Bright. I received my master's in social work in 2017 from Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville. I am a single parent of a toddler, and I have been working in some capacity with parents of children of varying ages over the past several years. And working with parents just seems to be my niche.
That sounds great. And it's fantastic to hear that you're so connected to your passion. And what was the path you took to get there? Like, what motivated you to become a multisystemic therapist?
Yeah, so I unintentionally stumbled upon multisystemic therapy, um, and it ended up being the biggest blessing because I found a model that suits
Hmm.
my goals as a therapist.
Yeah.
After working in child welfare for several years and working with parents on correcting some of the situations that led to the abuse and neglect, I was super burned out. I was going through my own divorce and I was needing to move 5 hours north to be close to my family and my support system. And I had a clinical supervisor that I was receiving my clinical supervision from because I am working towards my licensed clinical social worker
Hmm.
certification. She just so happened to recommend the MST program for me, and there just so happened to be a office located near exactly where I was moving that was hiring. So I made this huge move, and I had to learn about MST very quickly. I wouldn't say I set out to be an MST therapist. I think if you would have told me when I graduated with my MSW that I'd be working with teenagers, I probably would have made a face. But I had to get into the model and start working with the families and learning about the challenges
Yeah.
that are particular to parents raising teenagers,
Hmm.
to really learn that I'm right where I need to be in my career. So this was a huge risk I took. I'm so glad I took it.
That sounds great. But as you go through your multisystemic therapy career, what is one thing that you really feel that you're solving for? What's one thing that you really hold important to yourself?
I I do set out to, help families learn new skills and
Hmm.
teenagers learn new skills on how to navigate life. I think something really special about the MST program is you might not see the biggest changes happen.
Yeah.
Um, but just like that glimmer of hope that you're able to see with family sometimes, or just the smallest thing that changes,
Hmm.
is just really something I set out for.
Yeah.
Sometimes families, raising teenagers just need to see that glimmer of hope.
I completely agree with that idea that people need to have that spark of knowing their passion so they can really find it. But
Mhm.
as you previously mentioned, your MST model. So can you define that and how does that affect your mindset as well as approach to your job?
Sure. So the therapy model that I practice is a family focused, evidence based model. It's designed for teens 12 to 17 struggling with emotional, social, behavioral issues. Some might get verbally, physically aggressive. Some are into drugs and alcohol. Others are destroying property, running away. They need to be able to fit some of that criteria to qualify for the program. Um, the teens we serve also must be in the juvenile justice system, like on probation, or in the child welfare system. Maybe a DCFS case opened up on the family because of their behaviors. And that's just for funding purposes.
Yeah.
And then the families are placed in the program to prevent the teenager from being removed from the home. Um, and the model helps the teenagers develop ability to positively modify their behavior as well as teaching the parents the skills and also giving
Yeah.
them the resources that they need just to independently address the issues that are going on at home so they're not always needing to pull in outside supports. We're giving them the skills that they need and also helping them build their support system and how to use their support system and making sure that they're not burning people out and things
Mhm.
like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so we also, MST has a philosophy that the family holds the solution to the teenagers' problems. Even if they want someone to come in and fix what's going on in the home, really they most of the time they have the solution right there. Um Also, we also focus on the ecology of the teen as well, like their family, their friends, their community that they're in their school.
Mhm.
Um, and then we also focus on placing interventions with the caregivers. The caregivers are implementing those interventions, and it just helps improve their discipline practices, enhances their family relations, also increases association with positive peers for teenagers,
Mhm.
and also just increasing engagement in recreational outlets and sports and stuff like that.
That sounds good.
Um, Also, lastly, some models of therapy, have this idea of like the client has to want to change, and there's kind of this open space where, well, if they don't want to change, then, I guess we'll just have to give up on them. But the MST model, we do not give up on our families. We don't label them as like unmotivated or resistant to treatment or anything like that. Instead of backing away, when families give us pushback or, are canceling those sessions, or maybe they don't want to talk about something that us as therapists have pinpointed,
Mhm.
that's when us as the therapist, we get even closer and we
Yeah.
build that engagement and we dive in deeper instead of whereas some therapy models be like, okay, like they're not ready to address that. MSC has a very like head-on approach to that.
I really love how you guys don't give up on families because that really
Right.
shows that everyone has the potential to change. Even if they don't feel like they can, they still have the ability to be a better self. And one other thing that I
Mhm,
really like that you guys mentioned was the ecology of your program. I mean,
mhm,
that really connects the idea that everybody grows based on their idea of nurture. Instead of nature,
mhm,
like people have the ability to change and grow based on their environment, their support system,
mhm.
as you said, which I really like. So moving
Yeah.
on to the next question. Like when you are in a specific case or an assignment, what are some
Mhm.
goals that you are trying to achieve?
Yeah, so when I receive a case, I meet with the family 2 times a week for 3 to 5 months. So this is a very high intensity but short-term program. Um, and we target the referral behaviors with the family through implementing those interventions and working along the teen's ecology, like I mentioned. We're
Yeah.
not just placing all this pressure on the family to say, like, you need to fix this. No, we're pulling in the supports. We're reaching out, helping them reach out to extended family members.
Mhm.
Maybe we're encouraging them to knock on the neighbor's door that they've never met before.
Yeah.
So we're really pulling in the ecology to help out with these interventions. So it's not so much pressure on the family. The main goal is to give family the skills that they need to address the behaviors on their own so that the
Yeah.
kids don't need to be removed from the home. So we help families create that long-term change that is sustainable in a very short amount of time.
I really like how your program's really adaptive and how it's making sure that like families are able to do what they can do, and especially that idea of like using their own environments again, like as you said, knocking on the neighbor's door, just any
Mhm.
relative, just to make sure that you have that strong support system. So do you see a correlation between mental health as well as the problems that you're trying to achieve or solve?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I work with mental health every day in my
Yeah.
job, whether that is the parents' mental health and how that impacts their parenting, or whether that's the teen's mental health and how that impacts their negative behaviors going on at home. Mental health always finds a way to creep in. I see a lot of diagnoses, but I also, on the other hand, see a lot of signs and symptoms of mental health conditions with
Yeah.
no diagnosis. And that just depends on the family, and their values and their resources and their knowledge and acceptance about mental health.
Mhm.
And, we asked the questions to see how comfortable they are with talking about their mental health. And, if that family is not, maybe we need to come up with a different way to like word or phrase what they're going through so it's not so stigmatizing for
Yeah.
them. Um, I would say MST is like no other model when it comes to identifying problems within the family. We literally will call them out to parents, whereas some other models, would see that pressuring the family or the therapist wanting to create, the therapist creating tension between the family members wouldn't be beneficial. We see something happen in a session, we call it out. For example, if over several sessions I notice a mom is either missing or avoiding sessions because she fell asleep or is sleeping, I would be interested in what is causing that to her, falling asleep during the day
Mhm.
instead of just saying, "Oh, mom must be tired." Especially if the teenager is sneaking out while mom sleeps. Maybe we need to check on mom's mental health and find out why she is needing so much sleep during the day. Instead of just, labeling mom like, oh, she's lazy, or, I can't believe she fell asleep. Let's
Yeah.
really dig down deep into why she falls asleep.
Mm.
Um, as therapists, we often, call out the uncomfortable topics with the families, and it can be really uncomfortable for us as therapists. It kind of like pushes us, or in our
Yeah.
own personal limits as well. Um, but many of the times it is somehow correlated with the mental health um that they are have been trying to hide. So some of the issues, uncomfortable topics that we explore with families, many of the times it's tied to mental health. Uh, um, so to be able to do this with the family, though, this takes excellent rapport building skills.
Mhm.
You really need to get close to these families, and take some time to just talk with them. So I have some
Yeah,
sessions where we don't talk about anything clinical. Mom needs to decompress about what just happened over the weekend and feel
yeah,
like somebody is there for her. Or maybe I will bring mom a coffee when nobody else asked her how she was doing that day,
yeah,
you know? So, like I said, you need really good rapport building skills to do this with a family and confront families, and you need to be persistent and not just when a family tells you, no, I don't want to talk about that, not just leaving it there like, oh, like, I guess that really wasn't, so important. Really trusting your therapy skills and like, no, I saw something there. I'm going to bring it up, when mom feels more comfortable, or I'm going to say it a different way.
yeah.
um Trusting yourself as a therapist is important.
That really signifies that aspect of dedication that it takes to be a multisystemic
Yeah.
therapist. Yeah. Like the fact that you're able to like independently adapt to every situation, the fact that you're going
Mhm,
out of the way in order to solve this issue, that really shows that people like you are the people who ensure that everyone has a good support system. People like you are the ones
mhm,
that make sure that we're able to feel confident in this situation we're in. And I really am
mhm.
appreciative for people like you. So
Yeah.
mentioning that, do you have any specific stories during your career that have resonated strongly with yourself?
Yeah, without getting too specific,
Yeah,
like I mentioned earlier, I learned early on with the high risk cases that you are not going to see all of the positive changes that you envisioned for a family in 3 to 5 months. That takes some years of
yeah,
hard work with these families to overcome some of the barriers. Um, and, I may not have saved every kid, but I
yeah,
know for a fact that I give each and every family that I come into contact with a glimmer of that hope of, what life could be like,
mhm,
and help them make that some small, just that one small positive change could literally, be a game changer for somebody and just make their everyday life a little bit easier when they're parenting a teenager.
100%. That one small positive change, that's really that spark that offsets it all.
Mhm, mhm.
But considering the stressful nature of your job with helping others, how do you find time to help yourself? And how do you find time to manage your own mental health?
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm a single parent. And being an MST therapist is stressful, but the model allows the therapist to arrange their own schedules as long as they can be available 24/7 to their families. So I am able to build my own schedule, and that has been so helpful as a single
That's
parent.
great.
I think it's really important to involve a support system, especially when you're going through, things like single parenthood and and
Mhm.
divorce. So I do have a very strong support system. I make sure I set time for myself every weekend, spending time with my son and my dog. And then also just being out in nature is helpful for me. I also am heavily involved in my church, and like I said, I have a strong support system that really, helps out with a lot of things.
That sounds great. And one thing I also want to emphasize is the idea of support systems. Like, even as myself, being an adolescent just in high school, I'm able to find my own support system just
Mm,
by going to peers, going to friends, teachers, really anyone. And that
mhm.
extends beyond our families. We can go
Oh, yeah.
to students, we can go to peers, and even religious groups, as you mentioned. Any
Mhm.
group that you feel that can help you, that you feel like you're associated with or connected with, can really be some of a platform to further boost your mental health, your growth point, and much more. So with the idea of having a support system, what is one piece of evidence that you have for people in my peer community or just adolescents all around the world?
Yeah, I would say emphasizing the importance of staying connected to a positive community of people. I've emphasized that word positive and
Yeah,
not just having that one special friend that you talk with. Having people from your community, your sports, coaches, camps, schools, teachers, counselors, family, extended family, positive friends to be around. Have people you can go to for good, solid advice, and others that you can go to when you just need somebody to listen to you. And
yeah,
on top of that, making sure that your support system knows what you need them for and verbalizing that. Like, I just need someone to really talk to right now, or hey, could you give me some knowledge or advice on this? And that way, the teen is feeling like they're supported.
yeah.
I do think that that is one of the most important aspects of teenage life, is just having that support system to lean back on because it is hard.
Yeah.
So, and not just having that one friend, or that certain friend group, like it really branch out and include other community members to your support system.
I completely agree. Having a broad and expansive support system is definitely an advantage for not only yourself but people around you because while you feel that you might be burdening people with your issues, that's not really the situation. Because
Mm.
while you when you tell people your issues, you also make that sense of connection between yourself and them. So you're not
Mhm.
only establishing a support system for yourself, but also for others. So I really agree with that importance of having an expansive support system, not only just one
Mhm.
person, but to connecting to multiple people throughout your society, throughout your life, and just throughout the day to make sure that,
Yes.
like, throughout the day, you're having that continuous check that you're on the right track, both mentally, physically, and so on. So,
Yep.
but yeah, with that said, Miss Bright, I really feel that you covered each corner of mental health and
Mhm.
multisystemic therapy with a lot of detail, and I truly feel like I learned a lot on how we can not only have an impact on our society, but how we can ensure that we, as adolescents and as a future generation, are going on the right path.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for sharing your perspective and actions toward the significance of mental health. And I hope not only myself, but the Mental Plateau listeners are also able to take away the same message that I was able to learn. Um, and yeah, please remember to listen to more episodes in the future, as well as check out some of the episodes we previously uploaded. And you can find them on Interview, YouTube, as well as Spotify and many other platforms, as the Mental Plateau is now powered by the Humanity Rising organization. But yeah, with that said, thank you so much, Miss Bright, for being on today's episode of Mental Plateau. And remember, to stay healthy as a whole means mental wellness plays a role. Thank you.